Good afternoon. Going to teach you how to play with your hose today. The first step is to disassemble the thing, obviously. So we got to put it into our little soft jaw vise here, and we got to find the correct mandrel with the right angle. Obviously, only used for aviation. There we go. And then we got to tighten that up. And when you do this, don't be shy with the size of the tools. It makes it easier to have a lot of leverage for most of the operations. So once this is tight, we can turn it, and it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey on this portion. And sometimes the old hose has a hard time releasing, so you really got to hang on to it. And you see it twists up on itself. This usually happens when it's not seated properly, which this one wasn't. So you just got to force it. So this looks like a pretty good thread. You can inspect to see if they're stripped or not. If they're stripped, we don't reuse them. This one appears to be in pretty good shape. Then this guy is a left-hand thread. So I put that in on the sideways portion of the soft jaws, and I turn it to the right, just by hand. It will come undone. That one's a little rough. That's an old hose. This should have been replaced a while ago, obviously. Always check the date on these things. Even though they look good, they may be old, and they're dated in quarters. So we have it here somewhere. There it is. It says 4Q15. It's fourth quarter 2015. So this is a good hose. This is a rough cut. We want to have a pretty nice cut. So what we're going to do is.
What would be the shelf life of them before being out of the hose?
135 operations, I think, do every 5 years on hoses. Okay. In Part 91, it's on conditions. Technically, you can use it as long as you want, but I don't usually recommend it. I think anything over 10 years is probably silly. So use a cut-off blade. Do not use a bandsaw. This is a stainless steel reinforcement in here that'll destroy anything. So here we go. Oh, puppy. I'm going to first scare him and then get stuff all over him.
You don't do the tape on it, so it's nice.
I'll show you what I do.
Okay.
So I just do a perpendicular cut. Then I go over here. Like so. You just bevel the edges, and then use my trusty Native American, alternative lifestyle pliers.
Yeah.
To cut off the excess. It doesn't have to be super clean. I just do the stuff that would possibly interfere with the threading, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you don't have any wires sticking out. I like to wash these off in gas to get rid of the shavings. So we need to get one of the squirt bottles, by the way. For the outside portion, it's not necessary, so we'll put the soft jaws back in place.
Where'd you guys? You got a squirt bottle?
No, I stopped using that.
Of course, the magnets on my soft jaws don't work anymore.
I think Julie has some in her area.
So
I emptied mine out. I've been using the oil-based paint instead.
it's very important to seat this all the way down in there. So, and like I said before, it's a left-hand thread. So you're going to turn it the wrong way. And you push while you're doing it to assist the threads. and it'll kind of stop when it seats itself. And then you look in the light, make sure it's seated all the way in,
Yeah.
of course. Then, probably the most important step that people miss building hoses is masking tape. This is the greatest trick of all time when it comes to making hoses. Because you need a reference. It's impossible to tell if this is pushed back out when you put the rest of the parts on. So you put it on the bottom. And the maximum slippage allowed is 1/16 of an inch. That's it. That's all you're allowed to do. So there's your reference. That's the most important step. If you miss this, you can't verify that it's assembled properly. So let's stick this back in the vise. Do we have our sprayer?
Fuel but no sprayer.
That's fine, just a little bit here.
Okay.
Just to wash off the dust. That's good. So we still have this on the mandrel, and that's perfectly fine. No reason to take it off unless it was all oily, so it wants to slip, right? Now, the second very important part is the STP. You can do this with any kind of heavy oil, obviously. But STP is my preference.
STP has polytrichlorofluoroethylene in it.
There you go.
It's liquid Teflon suspended in oil.
So, really slick stuff.
Ooh.
Put the lid back on the jar before you cut your next hose. Don't ask me how I know. Get the threads a little bit lubricated. Pop this in, just like that. Reverse direction. I like to do this in one move, so I try to push down on it as well as spinning at the same time. I don't want to stop because it's hard to start sometimes and then it tends to slip. So that's why I like to use a ratchet instead of a wrench, because I can actually push down on it, right? So I hold it down. And I keep doing it for the first few threads. I'm helping them, otherwise you tend to strip them, right? It's really easy to do because they're partially cut. And once it starts holding, I just continue, wipe off the excess of the oil so I can see. And as Max mentioned here a second ago, between 30 and 50 thousandths is a good distance right there. So that's the assembly. We'll get rid of our mandrel. This should be spinning freely. And then we get to the inspection portion. No slippage. That's really, really important right there.
Yeah.
Then of course you cut it to length, put the other side in, and the last part of the inspection process after you wash it out is to sight it with a light all the way through. Because it is possible to get what's called a skiv. It's when you push it into the hose and actually cuts it, and it works like a one-way valve. It's a built-in check valve, and engines have failed because of it. Right? So there you go. That's how you build hoses. Any questions?
How do you tell the right from the left?
Peanut gallery.